And Iran says it will respond with long and painful strikes on US positions across the Gulf region if Washington renews attacks, and has restated its claim to the Strait of Hormuz, and complicating the plans of the United States for a coalition to reopen the waterway. 2 months into the US-Israel war on Iran, the strait remains closed, choking off 20% of the world's oil and gas supplies. And that has sent global energy prices surging and heightened concerns about the risks of an economic downturn.
A dual citizen of Turkey and Israel was detained in Istanbul after authorities discovered she had served in the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, which is considered a big violation of Turkish law. Turkey prohibits citizens from serving in foreign militaries without official authorization.
President Asif Ali Zardari and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif termed the labour force of Pakistan the backbone of society and a pillar of national strength in statements commemorating International Labour Day on Friday. As the world commemorated the international holiday observed annually on May 1, the President and the Premier issued separate messages to mark the occasion.
And the international jury of the 61st International Art Exhibition at the Venice Biennale has resigned just over a week before the festival was to announce its prizes on May 9. Organisers said on Thursday. The resignations come days after the jury announced they would not consider artists for countries whose leaders are facing charges at the International Criminal Court. An apparent reference and Silver Lion and Israel for the prestigious Golden and Silver Lion trophy. And the Iraq March Karachi just announced something that made us giggle. They're going to be crowning a misogynist of the year very soon. The group shared the news on their Instagram ahead of their 2026 march, which is scheduled to be held on Mother's Day, May 10, at Seaview. And at least 3 vessels have been targeted in hijackings this week off the coast of Somalia in what analysts fear is a replay of past piracy around the Horn of Africa. The area was the world's most notorious hotspot for piracy in the early to mid-2000s, with an international naval coalition eventually subduing the threat it posed to global shipping.
Gaza City, Gaza Strip, on top of the rubble of a destroyed building, Ibrahim Abu Alish is busy clearing stones and collapsed roofing to prepare the way for a bulldozer that will remove what remains of the building. Ibrahim, 24 years old, starts his day in the early hours of the morning and works until evening. Employed as a labourer with a local contracting company clearing debris from buildings destroyed during Israel's genocidal war on Gaza.
And in a scene reminiscent of a computer war game, 3 battle-fatigued soldiers dressed in white snow camouflage emerged from a war-torn alley with their hands raised above their heads. They crouched down, following the orders being blasted at them, fear and shock etched across their faces as they stared down the barrel of a machine gun mounted on a so-called ground robot. And Russia has continued heavy attacks on Ukraine for the past 24 hours, with several coming overnight on Thursday and in the early hours of Friday. At least 1 person has been killed and several have been injured. A Russian drone attack overnight damaged port infrastructure in Ukraine's southern Odessa region and wounded 2 people in the Black Sea port city of Odessa. Regional Governor Ole Kuiper said on Friday morning. And the global artificial intelligence marketing industry is entering a rapid expansion phase, with new projections showing the sector could generate $82 billion in annual revenue by 2030 and perhaps $300 billion by 2035. And the Kabisi letter wrote in a post today that AI marketing sector could grow at a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of more than 25% between 2025 and 2030 due to quick adoption of automation and data analytics and intelligent decision-making systems across businesses.
A late-night action by law enforcement agencies at One Constitution Avenue in Islamabad, one of the capital's most expensive residential real estate projects, has been widely reported on social media platforms as officials went door to door and asked occupants to vacate the building. The operation reportedly took place after the Islamabad High Court upheld the Capital Development Authority's (CDA) decision to cancel the lease of the high-rise project over a multi-billion rupee default, a local newspaper has reported.
The federal government has decided to provide electric bikes to government employees in a bid to reduce the oil import bill following rising international oil prices. 76,000 electric bikes will be distributed among eligible participants. The Engineering Development Board's proposal is currently awaiting final approval at the Prime Minister's office. A 6-year-old child who sells books on the road to support his family was allegedly assaulted by a staff member at a famous ice cream parlor in Baria Town, Phase 7, Rawalpindi, after he asked for ice during the ongoing hot weather. According to social media posts, the boy had gone to Sweet Cream's branch and requested ice as temperatures continue to rise. The request allegedly led to an altercation with a staff member.
Peshawar, a police constable was martyred on Friday when militants targeted an armoured police vehicle with a rocket and sniper attack at Kingaryan Bahadar, within the jurisdiction of Mandan police station near the Fatah Kel police post in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Banu district. The attack occurred while the vehicle was on a routine patrol. Islamabad. Reports of online violence against women journalists have doubled since 2020, with serious impacts on their health and well-being, according to a study published ahead of World Press Freedom Day, which is marked annually on May 3. The report by UN Women and Partners highlights how online violence targeting women in public life is becoming increasingly technologically sophisticated, invasive and damaging in the era of artificial intelligence. AI. Tensions remain high across the region, with Iran, the United States and Israel trading warnings as violence continues. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has described the US naval siege of Iranian ports as an extension of military operations that is intolerable. While US President Donald Trump said Washington might need to restart the war, adding that only a handful of people know the details of ongoing talks. The Minnesota Timberwolves eliminated Nikola Jokic's Denver Nuggets, while the New York Knicks put on one of the most dominant displays in NBA playoff history, destroying Atlanta to advance. And the surging Sixers beat the visiting Celtics again to force a decisive Game 7. Sixth-seeded Minnesota will play the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference semi-finals after completing a 110-98 win on Thursday for a 4-2 series upset of third-seeded.
And Pakistan has remained on the US watch list in the 2026 Special 301 report, which reviews how America's trading partners protect and enforce intellectual property rights. The Office of the United States Trade Representative released the annual report on Thursday. It reviewed more than 100 trading partners and placed 25 countries on the priority watch list or watch list. Vietnam was named the only priority foreign country in this year's report.
Spotify unveiled a new verification system on Thursday designed to help listeners distinguish human musicians from AI-generated content as artificial intelligence floods streaming platforms with a growing volume of synthetic tracks. The Swedish streaming giant said its Verified by Spotify badge, marked by a green checkmark, will begin appearing on artist profiles and in search results in the coming weeks, signaling that a profile has been reviewed and meets the platform's standards for authenticity. President Donald Trump faces a critical legal deadline on Friday that could determine the future of U.S. military operations against Iran, even as his administration signals it may rely on a controversial legal interpretation to bypass congressional approval under the War Powers Resolution of 1973. A U.S. president must terminate military action within 60 days of notifying Congress unless lawmakers authorize the operation. The annual observance of May Day should move beyond statements about the state's commitment to the rights of workers and serve instead as a stock-taking exercise to see how far the nation lags behind in securing fair wages and decent working conditions for the toiling masses. Currently, many workers in Pakistan have to deal with job insecurity, safety hazards at workplaces, and next to no benefits beyond their meager wages, which too at times are held up on flimsy pretexts. It is also a fact that most workers in the country are part of the informal sector, with only 2-3% of the workforce unionized. This situation suits most tycoons and business magnates as they can concentrate on maximizing profits at the expense of workers' welfare. According to the World Health Organization and UNAIDS, Pakistan has one of the fastest growing HIV epidemics in Asia. Meanwhile, WHO's Global Hepatitis Report 2026 identifies Pakistan as the single largest contributor to the global burden of hepatitis C. Are these two facts coincidental? Sadly, no. They are tragically intertwined. Both HIV and hepatitis C are blood-borne infections, transmitted when infected blood enters the human body. Both can also spread through sexual contact, and both, if untreated, are potentially fatal. The pathways through which these diseases spread are ubiquitous in Pakistan's healthcare and social practices, but we also suffer from a dangerous form of collective myopia. When there is a media report of an outbreak of HIV, Taunsa being the latest, we have a hysterical fit, we hyperventilate, we deny, we defend, we look for a conspiracy, we blame, we want to kill the messenger who brings the bad message, and we also quietly desire in our hearts and even pray that it passes quickly so that we can go back to our comfortable slumber. If you are finding it difficult to understand this description, then please see the press conference of a provincial health minister held after the BBCS documentary on Taunsa. Before we can control these diseases, we must treat this myopia.
I once made the mistake of watching one Republic TV reel, and now my algorithm refuses to believe I want nothing to do with Arnab Goswami and his nightly shouting festival. Lately, the familiar theatre has returned on my timeline, and this time the speculation-fuelled geopolitical analysis is pure comedy. And that too not the sharp wit of satire, but the kind of comedy associated with the comedian Carrot Top in full performance mode. This just in. Our sources say US Vice President J.D. Vance would turn back mid-flight rather than reach Pakistan for talks, declared one anchor in a reel. Another gravely informed viewers that Donald Trump was scared for Vance's security in Pakistan. Yet another featured Arnab Goswami on the verge of a literal meltdown, demanding to know how Pakistan could mediate between the US and Iran. Islamabad. Persistent governance failures and weak community-level systems continue to undermine Pakistan's ability to prepare for and respond to climate disasters. A new report has warned, calling for urgent reforms to build long-term resilience across vulnerable districts. The findings, compiled by the think tank Jinnah Institute, come in the wake of the devastating 2025 floods, which submerged entire districts, displaced millions and wiped out livelihoods, exposing critical gaps in preparedness despite years of policy frameworks, institutional reforms and international commitments. The report argued that reliance on reactive disaster management has proven insufficient in the face of intensifying climate stress. Islamabad, the National Accountability Bureau, NAB Islamabad Rawalpindi on Thursdays, secured the transfer of 6,500 canals of amenity plots and public utility land from two private housing societies to the Capital Development Authority, CDA. The NAB's intervention addressed long-standing gaps in regulatory compliance, including delayed transfers and unlawful utilisation of land earmarked for public use within housing societies.
Karachi, the venue for the Breathe Pakistan International Climate Change Conference, has been shifted due to unavoidable circumstances. Dawn Media said in an announcement on Thursday, the conference, which was originally scheduled to be held at the Jinnah Convention Centre on May 6-7 in Islamabad, has been moved to the Sheesh Mahal Hall of Serena Hotel, Islamabad, the announcement said. Islamabad. The Islamabad High Court, IHC, on Thursday upheld the Capital Development Authority, CDA, decision cancelling lease of iconic skyscraper 1 Constitution Avenue owing to the multi-billion rupees default. IHC Chief Justice Sardar Mohammad Sarfraz Dorkar announced the decision on the appeals filed by M-Session BNP Private Limited and the occupants of flats in the skyscraper.
Islamabad. The weaponization of the country's cybercrime laws is one of the most serious threats to media freedom in Pakistan, Press Freedom Watchdog Freedom Network said. In its report, Regulatory Repression of Freedom of Expression, Legal Controls and PECA Undermine Media and Journalism in Pakistan, the watchdog said that amendments to the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, PECA 2016, had created a climate of fear where journalists are compelled to self-censor to avoid legal repercussions.
And India has emerged as the largest user base for ChatGPT Images 2.0 since its launch last week, OpenAI said on Thursday. However, third-party data reviewed by TechCrunch points to a more measured global response. And with limited overall growth alongside sharp spikes in select emerging markets, ChatGPT Images 2.0, OpenAI's latest image generation upgrade, is designed to handle more complex prompts and produce detailed visuals and including accurate text across multiple languages. Early patterns from the company suggest users, especially in India, its largest market, are using it to create personal visuals such as avatars, stylized portraits, and fantasy-themed images.
The entire jury of the Venice Biennale has resigned just 9 days before the inauguration of the prestigious art event, amid growing tensions over the return of Russia for the first time since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In a brief statement, the jury said it was acting in accordance with its previous decision not to consider countries whose leaders are currently charged with crimes against humanity for any prizes, meaning Russia and Israel.